opinion, then, has this been Andy Ruiz 15 minutes? Is his 15 minutes up, or will we see kind of a resurgence of Andy Ruiz? He commented, for instance, on rededicating himself and coming in better shape next time. If he had been in better shape, we kind of touched on it. It sounds like we all feel like we don't know that it would have made a difference if he was a little bit lighter this time around. But is that it?
Here's the thing with Andy, man. He's always going to be a dangerous fighter. He's always going to be a dangerous puncher. Now it's up to him and his team and his people around him to keep him level-headed. I mean, because the fights are still there for him. There's big fights to be made still for Andy Ruiz. I mean, he could still fight Wilder. They're both PBC fighters. He could fight the winner of, he could fight Fury. He could fight any of the top heavyweights right now and still have a few good paydays left in him. But he's got to dedicate himself. I mean, the last big Mexican heavyweight that we had like this that had that potential was Chris Arreola, and he ruined his career. He had all the chances in the world to be a heavyweight champion, but because of his lack of discipline, the same way Andy showed going into this fight, it may be the same thing if Andy's not careful. I mean, he needs to get a solid team around him and people that are going to actually try to ground this man. Of course, he's going to have to want to do it himself, but, it's kind of like Leonard Ellerby was saying, like I was telling you, off the air earlier. When Floyd fought, it didn't matter if it was a fight for $25,000 or a fight for $25 million. Floyd always prepared the same way. He always prepared. He
was always in shape.
He always stayed in the gym.
Yeah.
Always ready to go. So, if you want to be a fighter, you got to have that. You got to have that type of discipline. You have to take each fight like it's your last fight and go out there and do it. And he didn't prepare. That doesn't mean he would have won if he would have been prepared. I mean, but who's to say? Well, I can tell you what the naysayers are saying because he lost is that they're attributing that to him not being in the right shape. He's attributing it himself to not being in shape or not being ready to go. He's saying that himself. So we don't know because he wasn't in that shape. He wasn't ready to go.
And definitely, I don't think anyone doubts that there are big fights potentially on the horizon for Andy Ruiz, like a Deontay Wilder fight. That might make a lot of sense. Even a Luis Ortiz fight or some of these other fighters, right? But I guess the question more isn't like, hey, are there a couple more $1 million fights for Andy Ruiz in the works? It's more, has he peaked? Have we reached the pinnacle of Andy Ruiz? And from this point forward, what we can expect to see is kind of him being the, for lack of a better term, the B-side opponent for some other heavyweights who are competing at the championship level.
As far as B-side, I don't know, but as far as him peaking, I think we may have seen it. Especially when this check clears.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. I don't know if I think we've seen the best of Andy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You think
I don't
so?
think it gets bigger than beating Anthony Joshua, knocking out Anthony Joshua at MSG, right? The biggest star in the heavyweight division. I don't think it gets bigger than that for Andy.
But what about regaining a title? I mean, like, for example, Anthony Joshua lost. And everybody said, not everybody, but there are a number of people who said, that's it, he's done. He's washed up.
Strongly disagreed with that all the way.
And I'm not saying that you did, but you could see comments all across Facebook, people saying he should retire. He'll never be Andy Ruiz. Yeah, so, I mean, it's easy, I think, for us to sit here and say, hey, he looked bad in that performance. He came in out of shape. He's done. And we could have said the same thing about Tyson Fury, right? When we look at Tyson Fury and said, wow, I mean, the guy's 320 pounds. He's an addict, and he's done.
He was supposed to be.
He was supposed to be, right? Yeah. So, these narratives have a way of working themselves out, I think, if you can dedicate yourself. Like, that's what we saw with Tyson Fury. He rededicated himself to the craft. And we saw the same thing with Anthony Joshua, right? He went in, he rededicated himself.
Here's the thing with Andy. This isn't his first trainer, and I'm sure it's not going to be his last, depending on what type of beef, continues on between him and Manny Robles. And even prior trainers and prior people have said in the past, Andy's never had that discipline. Like you guys said earlier, he was in shape because he was coming off of that fight at the StubHub Center. So he was already in some type of shape. He wasn't in the best shape, but he was, already in some type of fighting shape.
That's probably the best shape he's ever been for those two fights. Yeah. Probably the best shape he's ever been in.
Possibly.
I think in terms of marketability, I don't think he's done. You can obviously make good fights from now on, but in terms of peaking in his sports career, I mean, he created one of the greatest memories in boxing history. I don't think
it was terrific.
Yeah, I don't think he'll do
it. It truly was. I mean, meaning that moment for years from now will still be remembered as this amazing moment in the sport, you know.